Life in the US isn't all sunshine and rainbows. Some cities are grappling with challenges that make them tough places to live in 2025. What's it like to live in a city where crime, poverty, and struggling infrastructure dominate daily life? Are you curious which cities have the worst reputations this year? Buckle up, because we're diving into the top 10 worst cities to live in America. Think your city made the list? Stick around to find out which urban nightmares people are calling home. Number 10. Chicago, Illinois. Chicago, fondly called the Windy City, but sometimes it feels like those winds carry more struggles than charm. This iconic city, known for its stunning architecture and deep dish pizza, has been facing some rough patches in 2025. Let's talk numbers because, honestly, the stats paint a vivid picture. Chicago has a violent crime rate of 943 per 100,000 residents, which is 67% higher than the national average. It's not just numbers on paper, people feel the impact daily. With over 800 homicides reported annually, Chicago consistently finds itself on the list of the most dangerous cities in the US. But crime isn't the only problem. The cost of living here is sky high. Renting a one-bedroom apartment in the city averages $2,100 per month, which is nearly 50% more than the national average. And if you're looking to buy property, brace yourself for one of the highest property tax rates in the country, averaging 2.3% of the home's value. For perspective, that's almost double the national average of 1.1%. Gas prices in Chicago are also nothing to smile about, typically hovering around $4.50 per gallon. Ouch. Now, let's talk about jobs. The unemployment rate in certain neighborhoods like Inglewood and Austin remains staggeringly high at over 10% compared to the national average of 3.8%. On the flip side, areas like Lincoln Park or the Gold Coast flourish, creating a sharp divide in wealth and opportunities. This economic disparity has earned Chicago the unfortunate title of one of the most segregated cities in the US. Despite its challenges, Chicago isn't without its bright spots. It's a city with world-class museums like the Art Institute of Chicago, legendary sports teams, and iconic food. Who doesn't love a good Chicago-style hot dog? But as much as we love Chicago's cultural heart, the potholes, literal and metaphorical, make it tough to call this city an easy place to live. Imagine living in a city where your morning coffee might cost you $7 because even inflation wants a piece of the action. So, is Chicago all bad? Of course not. But if you're thinking of settling down here in 2025, just make sure you're ready to navigate the challenges, because Chicago doesn't always make life easy for its residents. 9. Los Angeles, California. Los Angeles, the City of Angels, may seem like a dream destination with its glitz and glamour. But for those who actually live here, it's often more of a financial and social nightmare. LA is home to some of the most iconic landmarks: Hollywood, Santa Monica Pier, and Venice Beach. But beneath that shining exterior lies a city struggling with mounting issues in 2025. Let's start with the elephant in the room: the cost of living. The average rent for a one-bedroom apartment in LA is a staggering $2,750 per month, making it 91% higher than the national average. If you think buying a home is better, think again. The median home price in LA sits at $920,000, pricing out all but the wealthiest residents. And it's not just housing that'll drain your wallet. Everyday essentials like groceries and gas are equally expensive, with gas prices often hovering around $5 per gallon. That's enough to make anyone reconsider their daily commute, which, by the way, is also a nightmare. Los Angeles is infamous for its traffic, with the average Angelino spending 119 hours per year stuck in gridlock. That's nearly 5 entire days of your life wasted sitting in your car. Now let's talk about the homelessness crisis, one of the city's most visible and heartbreaking challenges. In 2025, over 46,000 people are experiencing homelessness in Los Angeles County, a 10% increase from just a few years ago. Skid Row, a notorious area in downtown LA, has become a grim symbol of the city's inability to tackle this issue effectively. Crime also continues to be a concern, with the violent crime rate in LA standing at 560 incidents per 100,000 residents, higher than the national average of 398 per 100,000. Car thefts, in particular, have skyrocketed, with over 50,000 reported incidents annually. Combine that with the city's wildfires, which have destroyed thousands of homes and caused billions of dollars in damages, and you've got a recipe for constant anxiety. While LA still dazzles with its entertainment industry and beautiful beaches, the question remains, is the sunshine worth the struggle? For many residents, the answer is complicated, as they weigh the perks of living in a world-famous city against the steep costs, both financial and emotional. Number 8. Washington, D.C. Washington, D.C., the nation's capital, might be the heart of American politics, but for its residents, living here in 2025 often feels like a daily battle. While the city is home to iconic landmarks like the White House, the Capitol, and the Smithsonian Museums, it's also plagued by high living costs, crime, and social inequality. Let's break it down, starting with housing. The average rent for a one-bedroom apartment in D.C. is a jaw-dropping $2,500 per month, and home prices average around $700,000, making it one of the most expensive cities in the U.S. to live in. On top of that, transportation costs don't make life any easier. While the D.C. metro system is more reliable than many other cities' public transit systems, fares are among the highest in the country, with monthly passes costing up to $200. And if you decide to drive, parking can cost you as much as $300 a month, not to mention gas prices that regularly exceed the national average. But what about safety? Well, D.C. struggles with crime, particularly violent crime. In 2025, the city reports a violent crime rate of 1,000 incidents per 100,000 residents, more than double the national average. Homicides and armed robberies remain a significant issue, especially in neighborhoods like Southeast D.C. Education is another sore point for families living in the capital. While there are some top-tier private schools, public schools often face funding challenges, with only 31% of students meeting grade-level proficiency in math. The city's inequality is stark. On one side, you have luxury condos and political elites, and on the other, struggling communities facing poverty rates of over 20%. Despite these challenges, D.C. has its silver linings. It's a hub for history, culture, and diversity. The National Mall and free museums like the Smithsonian are incredible, but let's face it, these perks don't offset the challenges of living here. For many, the high cost of living and safety concerns make Washington, D.C. one of the hardest cities to call home in 2025. Number 7. Cleveland, Ohio. Cleveland, Ohio, often called the Land, might not have the same star power as cities like LA or Chicago, but it's certainly gained a reputation for its struggles in 2025. This once thriving industrial city has been hit hard by economic decline, population loss, and rising crime rates. Let's talk about the numbers. Cleveland's violent crime rate stands at 1,500 incidents per 100,000 residents, making it one of the most dangerous cities in the country. That's nearly 4 times the national average. Property crime is also a significant issue, with car theft and burglary rates soaring. Economically, things aren't looking much brighter. Cleveland's unemployment rate sits at 6.7%, which is well above the national average of 3.8%. Many of the city's manufacturing jobs have disappeared over the past few decades, leaving entire neighborhoods in decline. In fact, Cleveland's population has dropped from over 900,000 in the 1950s to just under 370,000 today, making it one of the fastest shrinking cities in the U.S. Housing affordability is one of the few bright spots in Cleveland, with the median home price at just $120,000. But here's the catch. Many of these homes are in areas with crumbling infrastructure and underfunded schools. Speaking of education, Cleveland's public school system ranks near the bottom nationwide, with only 22% of students meeting grade-level proficiency in math. Let's not forget the ongoing struggle with poverty. Over 30% of Cleveland's residents live below the poverty line, one of the highest rates among major U.S. cities. This economic hardship is visible in the city's neglected neighborhoods, where vacant homes and abandoned buildings are a common sight. Though it faces obstacles, Cleveland isn't without its charms. It's home to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, passionate sports fans, and a surprisingly vibrant food scene. But for many residents, these perks don't outweigh the daily struggles of living in a city that feels stuck in a downward spiral. In 2025, Cleveland is a city with potential, but for now, it remains one of the most difficult places to live in America. Number 6. New Orleans, Louisiana. New Orleans, often referred to as the Big Easy, is a city bursting with culture, history, and music. It's the birthplace of jazz, home to Mardi Gras, and a culinary paradise with Creole and Cajun dishes that leave your taste buds dancing. But for locals in 2025, life in New Orleans is far from easy. Beneath its vibrant surface lies a city grappling with major challenges, making it one of the most difficult places to live in America. First, let's address the elephant in the room: hurricanes. New Orleans sits in one of the most disaster-prone areas in the U.S. Hurricane Ida in 2021 was a wake-up call, causing over $75 billion in damages. Fast forward to 2025, and residents are still recovering from annual storms and floods. The city's levee system, although improved after Hurricane Katrina, remains vulnerable, leaving entire neighborhoods at risk of flooding. In fact, over 40% of the city's population lives in areas classified as flood-prone. The cost of living is another issue. While housing costs are relatively low, with the median home price around $275,000, insurance costs are sky-high due to the constant threat of hurricanes. Home insurance premiums in New Orleans average $3,500 annually, nearly triple the national average of $1,250. Add to that the high cost of utilities, which are 30% higher than the national average due to frequent infrastructure repairs, and you've got a financial headache for residents. Crime is also a serious problem. New Orleans has a violent crime rate of 1,200 incidents per 100,000 residents, more than 3 times the national average. Carjackings and armed robberies have become all too common, and the city has one of the highest murder rates in the U.S., with over 300 homicides annually. Despite these challenges, New Orleans remains a cultural treasure. Its lively French Quarter, world-class music scene, and unique festivals draw millions of tourists every year. But for residents, the daily struggles with crime, natural disasters, and rising costs make living here a constant battle. The Big Easy may be a great place to visit, but for many, it's not so easy to call it home. Number 5. Little Rock, Arkansas. Little Rock, Arkansas might seem like a quiet, small-town capital, but for residents in 2025, it's a city that struggles with big-time issues. Nestled along the Arkansas River, Little Rock has its charm, but those charms often get overshadowed by crime, poverty, and limited opportunities. Let's start with crime, one of the city's biggest problems. Little Rock has a violent crime rate of 1,640 incidents per 100,000 residents, which is more than 4 times the national average. In fact, it consistently ranks among the top 10 most dangerous cities in the United States. Car thefts, burglaries, and assaults are alarmingly common, and certain neighborhoods are considered unsafe even during the day. Economically, Little Rock struggles to provide opportunities for its residents. The median household income is around $53,000, which is significantly below the national median of $74,580. Compounding this issue, the poverty rate hovers at 19%, nearly double the national average. For many families, making ends meet is a daily struggle. Job growth in the area remains stagnant, with unemployment hovering around 5.2%, well above the national average of 3.8%. Education is another challenge. The Little Rock School District has faced declining enrollment and budget cuts, leading to fewer resources for students. Only 29% of students meet grade-level proficiency in math, highlighting the city's struggles to prepare the next generation for success. Infrastructure issues also plague Little Rock. Roads are often in poor condition, and public transportation is limited, leaving residents heavily reliant on cars in a city with high gas prices. The city's aging infrastructure struggles to keep up with demand, and frequent power outages during severe weather add to residents' frustrations. While Little Rock does have its bright spots, it's home to beautiful parks, including the Arkansas River Trail, and a growing food scene that celebrates Southern comfort cuisine. However, for those living here, the negatives often outweigh the positives. High crime rates, limited economic opportunities, and underfunded schools make Little Rock a tough place to thrive in 2025. It's a city with potential, but for now, many residents find it hard to see a brighter future. Number 4. Birmingham, Alabama. Birmingham, Alabama, often referred to as the Magic City, once thrived as a center for steel production and industrial growth. However, in 2025, that magic has faded for many residents. While the city holds a rich history in civil rights and Southern culture, Birmingham faces significant challenges that make it one of the most difficult places to live in the U.S. One of Birmingham's most glaring issues is its economic disparity. The median household income in Birmingham is just $40,000 compared to the national median of $74,580. With a poverty rate of 24%, nearly 1 in 4 residents struggles to make ends meet. The lack of economic opportunities is a lingering problem, with job growth remaining stagnant at 0.8% annually, much lower than the national average of 3.5%. For young professionals and families, finding stable employment with decent pay can be a significant hurdle. Crime is another major concern. Birmingham consistently ranks among the most dangerous cities in the country, with a violent crime rate of 1,800 incidents per 100,000 residents, a rate more than 5 times the national average. Murders, assaults, and robberies dominate local headlines, and many residents feel unsafe in their own neighborhoods. The city's police force is stretched thin, with a shortage of officers leading to delayed response times and limited patrol coverage. Education also poses a challenge for families in Birmingham. The public school system is underfunded, with only 25% of students meeting proficiency in math and reading. Many families turn to private schools, but with tuition costs averaging $8,000 to $12,000 annually, it's an option only for the few who can afford it. This leaves many children stuck in a system that struggles to provide a quality education. Infrastructure woes add to the city's difficulties. Birmingham's aging roads and bridges are in dire need of repair, with over 30% of its infrastructure classified as poor or mediocre by the American Society of Civil Engineers. Flooding during heavy rains is common due to inadequate drainage systems, further impacting residents' quality of life. Despite its challenges, Birmingham boasts a rich cultural scene, with attractions like the Birmingham Civil Rights Institute and excellent Southern cuisine. However, the city's high crime rates, poverty, and struggling schools overshadow its potential, making daily life a battle for many of its residents. Number 3. Detroit, Michigan. Detroit, Michigan, often called the Motor City, is a place that holds a special spot in American history. As the birthplace of the automobile industry and Motown music, it's a city with undeniable cultural and industrial significance. But in 2025, Detroit remains a city grappling with major challenges, making it one of the hardest places to live in America. First and foremost, Detroit's population decline continues to impact its economic stability. Once home to 1.8 million residents in the 1950s, the city now has a population of just 630,000. This mass exodus has left behind thousands of abandoned homes and vacant lots, creating urban blight. Around 20% of the city's properties are vacant, making neighborhoods feel desolate and unsafe. Unemployment is a persistent issue. Although the city has made efforts to revitalize its economy, Detroit's unemployment rate in 2025 remains at 7.1%, nearly double the national average. Job opportunities in manufacturing, once the city's backbone, have dwindled significantly. And while tech and entrepreneurial ventures are growing, they're not enough to support the large population. The median household income is just $34,000, leaving many families below the poverty line. Crime remains one of Detroit's biggest hurdles. The violent crime rate stands at a staggering 2,100 incidents per 100,000 residents, making it one of the most dangerous cities in the country. Gun violence, in particular, is a major issue, with over 300 homicides annually. Many residents report feeling unsafe even in their own homes, and police resources are often stretched too thin to address the widespread issues effectively. Education is another area of concern. The Detroit Public Schools Community District struggles with low graduation rates, hovering around 65%, and poor academic performance. Many schools lack basic resources, and teacher shortages exacerbate the problem. Families who can afford it often move to the suburbs for better educational opportunities, further draining the city of its middle-class population. While Detroit is a city of resilience, efforts to revitalize downtown, including new businesses and entertainment venues, have brought a spark of hope. Iconic attractions like the Detroit Institute of Arts and the thriving music scene remain points of pride. However, for many residents, the daily struggles with crime, poverty, and a lack of opportunities make life in the Motor City anything but smooth. Number 2. St. Louis, Missouri. St. Louis, Missouri, nicknamed the Gateway to the West, boasts iconic landmarks like the Gateway Arch and a rich history tied to the Mississippi River. However, in 2025, the city is struggling under the weight of significant issues that make it one of the worst places to live in America. While its culture, sports teams, and BBQ cuisine draw tourists, residents face challenges that affect daily life. Crime in St. Louis is a major concern. The city has one of the highest violent crime rates in the United States, with 2,000 incidents per 100,000 residents, making it nearly 6 times the national average. St. Louis consistently ranks among the most dangerous cities in the U.S., with neighborhoods like North City particularly affected by gun violence, theft, and assaults. The homicide rate is alarmingly high, with over 260 murders annually in a city of just 300,000 residents. For many, safety remains a constant worry, and some families avoid going out after dark. Economically, St. Louis faces deep challenges. The median household income is $48,000, significantly lower than the national median of $74,580, and the poverty rate stands at a staggering 21%. Economic disparities are stark, with affluent areas like Clayton and the Central West End contrasting sharply with underprivileged neighborhoods where access to jobs and resources is limited. The city's unemployment rate is 5.4%, above the national average, and job growth is sluggish. Infrastructure is another area of concern. St. Louis has an aging public transit system, with outdated buses and trains serving a sprawling metro area. Roads and bridges are in poor condition, and heavy rains often lead to flooding in low-lying areas. The city spends millions annually on infrastructure repairs, but progress is slow, and residents frequently deal with potholes, detours, and water main breaks. Education in St. Louis also struggles to meet residents' needs. Only 20% of public schools in the city are rated as high-performing, leaving many families seeking alternatives. The graduation rate in St. Louis public schools hovers around 70%, and literacy rates are below the national average. While St. Louis has bright spots, including its zoo, museums, and passionate sports culture, these attractions are overshadowed by crime, poverty, and infrastructure woes. Residents often describe the city as having great potential, but a long way to go before it becomes a desirable place to live. Number 1. Memphis, Tennessee. Memphis, Tennessee, known as the birthplace of blues and home to Elvis Presley's Graceland, carries a rich cultural legacy. However, for residents in 2025, living in Memphis is far from a harmonious experience. Despite its musical roots and southern charm, Memphis faces severe challenges that make it the worst place to live in America this year. One of the most significant issues in Memphis is its high crime rate. The city's violent crime rate is a staggering 2,300 incidents per 100,000 residents, one of the highest in the nation. Carjackings, burglaries, and homicides are frequent occurrences. In 2024 alone, Memphis recorded nearly 350 homicides, making it one of the deadliest cities per capita in the United States. Some neighborhoods, such as Orange Mound and Fraser, are particularly affected, with residents often feeling unsafe even during the day. Economic struggles further complicate life in Memphis. The median household income is just $43,000, far below the national median of $74,580. The poverty rate is a shocking 25%, with 1 in 4 residents living below the poverty line. The unemployment rate hovers at 6%, and while the city is working to attract new businesses, job opportunities remain limited, especially in well-paying industries. Education is another area where Memphis falls short. Public schools in the Shelby County District face underfunding, high teacher turnover rates, and poor academic performance. The high school graduation rate is 74%, and proficiency rates in math and reading hover around 30%, leaving many students unprepared for higher education or the workforce. For families, the lack of quality education options is a significant drawback. Infrastructure and housing also present challenges. Memphis has an aging infrastructure system that struggles to keep up with the needs of its population. Roads are riddled with potholes, public transit options are limited, and severe storms often lead to flooding and power outages. The city also grapples with blighted neighborhoods, with thousands of abandoned homes creating eyesores and safety concerns. Despite these challenges, Memphis remains a cultural gem, with landmarks like Beale Street, Sun Studio, and its thriving barbecue scene. But for residents, the city's cultural charm is overshadowed by high crime rates, economic struggles, and a lack of opportunities, making Memphis a tough place to call home in 2025.